All right, so exciting. I love it. We've got some people joining right now. I know we're just a minute early, but it gives people a chance to come on in. Kathleen, so good to see you. You've got your bright yellow flowers and your bright yellow hope. Oh, wonderful.
Yay.
You guys who are in here early, you are in for a treat today. Let me tell you, this is probably one of my favorite topics. It's become one of my favorite topics, and we have so many resources for you today. So you're going to take it, you're going to run with it, and you're going to do amazing things in your schools and classrooms. So excited. But we do have a couple more minutes. So if anybody would like to put where you're from, what you're hopeful about, any questions for Kathleen, tell us something cool you've done recently, go ahead and throw that in the chat. We would love to hear from you. And we'll get started right at the bottom of the hour.
Especially where you're from and what you do.
I once had somebody say, I'm from Earth and I make an impact. I'm like, all right. Every educator should say that. I'm from Earth and I make an impact.
Yep. All important things.
We're all doing these important things. Wonderful. So for those of you who have just joined us, thanks for being here. We did not get started earlier. We were just kind of shouting out some things. We're just happy you're here today. And we have a full, awesome webinar. So we'll be putting the information for this link in the chat, so you'll have access to everything we're sharing today. And we'll go ahead and get started. I am so excited to introduce our guest. This is part 2. Don't worry if you missed part 1, you can go back and watch it, or just grab everything and run with it. You'll just be there. But we'd love to know where you're from, what you do in your classroom, in your schools, with your life, and what you're passionate about. And I would love to introduce Kathleen. So go ahead and take it away, Kathleen.
Hi, everybody. My name's Kathleen Beachboard. That's a picture of me doing my first TEDx talk. Woo, that was awesome. I am an educator, teacher foremost, researcher, and also a mom. Shout out to Lewis. Yay, special education teacher, co-teach. Woo. I love my co-teachers. The topic we're going to be talking about today is near and dear to my heart. So before we get into this, how I got into psychological hope and utilizing it is way before the pandemic. I adopted 5 children out of a case of extreme abuse and neglect. Now, I know what you're thinking, like 5, really? Yeah. So I thought I had all the tools I needed because I knew to form a good relationship and do all of those things. But I'm going to be honest with you, I really did not know what I was doing. And it was a hot mess. It came to the point where I was literally Google searching, how do you fix broken children? And in that search, though, as I was struggling to figure out what to do to help my children, I discovered that, yes, trauma does change the brain, but hope helps change the brain too. And it has a big impact on your medial orbital frontal cortex. So psychological hope is one of the most powerful things in the universe. And if we use it and we measure it and we strengthen it for our students, we can give them a cognitive asset that they can use for the rest of their lives to find success and be resilient against the trials that we will face in life. And see, that's something that is just beyond impactful. So that's a little bit about me. I also have a book out called The School of Hope that we're kind of going to talk about, because the resources in here today, I realize you guys are educators, and educators don't get paid a lot. I teach high school on top of the other things that I do. And so all of these are make it, take it resources. I want you to have them and to be able to utilize them instantaneously, and you will get a copy of them. Just make sure you're signed into your Google accounts and you can modify them. All I ask is that you give credit where it's due, but you use them and make them fit your classroom or wherever you are in education. Shout out to PE and health teacher. Okay, so we're going to get started with this presentation. I have Jeanette from Thrively on the wheel. So first and foremost, woohoo! I love Jeanette. Hope is measurable. It's not an obscure concept. It's a mix of your goals, pathways, that's your ability to form a path to your goals, and agency, that's your willpower or motivation for your goals. So these three things, goals, pathways, and agency, combine together to form psychological hope. And you can measure it. What? Yeah, just like you would any other test. And by measuring it, you're doing two things for your students. One, when you find out their lower areas, you can work on and strengthen those lower areas to give them this positive cognitive asset that will increase their ability to be resilient in their medial orbital frontal cortex. And number two, the second thing that you're doing is you're helping screen for students who need psychological, like they need a psychological push, and they also need support and tools because they're low in hope. So this screener can help you figure out those students who maybe aren't saying anything, but they actually do need help. And so it's a quick screener, as you'll see from Jeanette here in a second. All the students do is they can log into Thrively, and this is free once again. And you can get a quick snapshot of the hope score of your students as well as your staff. Staff? Yes, because the adults in the room need hope just as much as the kids do. Go ahead, Jeanette, show them a quick spin of how it works.
Absolutely. So this is great. There's no math. Oops.
Nope, no math.
Not that one.
All right, so
We're going to jump ahead to right here. So we show the screener. This is
looks like.
There we go.
So it's a sliding scale, and I can think of many ways to get out of a jam. And you could read it to them, and they choose where they're at, click next, and it's the same thing for all the questions. Remember, this is the adult one, so it's 12 questions. Theirs is less, so it'll take less time. And as they go through and they answer the questions, it's going to tabulate everything for you and give you a nice little scale of the results for your students, or in this case, your staff, if you're an administrator, of where your teachers are right now. And remember, partnering someone with high hope to low hope spreads hope to the low hope person. It does not impact the high hope person. So then you'll get a nice overall hope for the students to see, and you'll say, good.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jeanette. You're amazing. Okay, so that is a quick way of showing you what the hope scale would look like for your students and your staff. And I recommend this because it's one thing to say you have a hopeful culture or a hopeful school, but it's another thing to actually have the data to prove it. So what does hope do? I'll give you a quick show on the next slide. You'll see that hope has numerous benefits for your school and for your students. So just looking at this slide, this is multiple research studies, and you can find more inside my book, The School of Hope. But just for you to see, hope uniquely predicts objective academic achievement above intelligence, personality, and previous academic achievement. The magic of hope. Hope mediates the relationship between socioeconomic status and academic achievement, bullying involvement, and emotional difficulties in children. When you read that, you'll see that hope correlates to ultimately impacting a student's pro-social behaviors and avoiding bullying. On top of that, there is proof that hope, happiness, general health, and well-being are connected, especially when you look at the elderly. So hope is important. It's not important just for resilience, but for the achievement of our students and to help them have all of those positive cognitive assets that they need to achieve. Okay, so now that you've seen a quick snapshot of what hope can do, let's talk about the tools you can use to strengthen hope. So first of all, hope, the way I remember the different things that hope can do in the brain is it provides healing for those with trauma. I'm going to be honest, it saved my own 5 children. That's why I'm doing this webinar, because I believe in this message, because my children are living, breathing proof of the power of raising one's hope. So first, it provides healing. Second, it helps our children and our staff overcome the obstacles that they will face, and they will face them. And then it helps you plan for a brighter future. And most importantly, it energizes you and it gives you a drive to reach your goals to succeed. Okay, so let's talk about the tools that you can use. In the chat, I'm going to paste a link to this presentation that you can see that Jeanette is on. Right now, she is on slide number 5. If you guys want to go on the same presentation and click on slide 5, you'll see at the bottom there's a little button that says copy here. If you guys click copy here, it will give you an identical copy to what you see on the screen. So the first thing that we're going to talk
Kathleen,
about.
pause
Yes.
for 1 second. You may have shared, so my chat feature is not working right now, but you may have shared it to panelists and host, because I don't see it popped up. You have to
Okay, then
choose
let me
everyone.
do
Yeah,
everyone. There we
so
go.
everyone can have it.
There we go. Everybody, you're all on.
Yay! Good job.
So these are some tools that go with goals, pathways, and agency to help you increase hope in different situations. So this first one for healing, we have fire drills for fires, tornado drills for tornadoes, intruder drills for intruders. But the reality is our students are more likely to have a bad mental health day. Do you have a plan for that? Well, if you don't, you can create one with your students, especially the older students. They already have positive coping tools that they utilize. And with our younger students, they should be taught coping tools that they can use in a moment of distress or anxiety. So one of the things that you can teach younger students, if you're in the elementary grades, are physical and mental grounding techniques. There's a list of them in the chat. And then also you can use the self-care plan that's over in the middle. If you click on that and click copy here, it will create an entire document for you that you could assign to students in your digital platforms that you utilize for your school system. But the self-care plan is valuable. In fact, I had a student utilize it just today. So here's what happened. I'm at the high school level, and she created the self-care plan on the first 2 days of school. So you could do this any time of the year. You could do it tomorrow with your students. And here's how it's going to help you. When a student has a big emotional reaction to stress or anxiety, they're going to go into that amygdala brain, which is fight, flight, freeze, or flop. What the self-care plan does is it gives them a pathway and a goal, and it gives them something to do when they face these big problems. It's planning for their worst day on their best day. And it helps them because it has the tools that they have utilized to bounce back from a big emotional reaction, especially something that is personalized to them. So this student, I'm going to tell you what happened. She had a giant state exam and she had to pass it. It's a requirement for graduation. And her boyfriend had broken up with her and the world was over. However, I pulled out her self-care plan when she came in crying. I can't fix this situation. It already happened. But on her self-care plan, her big thing that she loved is horses and coloring. So what did I do? I went on the internet, I printed off a horse coloring sheet, and I gave her some crayons. This is a 12th grader. Within a few minutes of coloring that picture, she was able to calm down from her big emotional reaction. Did it take away the pain? No, but it got her through. She went and took her state test that she had to for graduation requirements. And when she got back the score at the end of the day, she found out she passed. She even came to me and she's like, you don't understand. I would have been so overwhelmed. That one thing that I did proactively to help my student create a goal, a path, and her willpower in the time of need that she needed was there because she created this plan. This gave her hope in a hopeless situation. I recommend everyone do this with all their students. And once again, if they don't have those coping tools, because they're in the younger grades, like first or second, they can use the physical and mental grounding techniques to learn different ways that they can ground themselves to the moment to help overcome the anxiety and stress that they're feeling. All right, so that's the first thing. And if you guys have questions during the chat, feel free to throw them in the chat because I will answer them as we go because I'm monitoring the chat. All right, so other than healing, we're going to go on. And on the next slide, what you'll see is we're going to talk about goal setting because that's one of the big ones. So your hope score. why isn't there a score for your goals on your hope score? Because people are naturally goal directed. When you woke up in this morning, you had goals for your day. You said, oh, I'm going to do this, this, this. And then later tonight, I'm going to go to a webinar with some awesome author, teacher, researcher. That's me. So you came up with those goals at the beginning of the day. However, hope impacts the type of goals you set. Those with low hope have little to no goals for their future. They take on easy, smaller goals. Remember what learning is: going in the zone of proximal development. That's going outside of where you feel comfortable. These kids will not want to willingly do that. And on top of that, they have an appraisal that they're not going to meet their goals, so why try? Whereas high hope people set on lots of goals. They have, and if one goal's not working, they switch to another one, and they have an appraisal that they will meet their goals. So yes, it impacts the future that our children are developing for themselves and for our staff members too. Their hope's just as vitally important if we want to create a culture that's going to be innovative and it's going to bloom and thrive. Okay, so now what are some tools that we can use for goal setting? First, we have on the next slide, what you'll see is utilizing ultimately the free hope playlists that are inside Thrively. Jeanette, I'll let you talk about those.
Yes, wonderful. And these were created in combination with the awesome resources and the amount of research that Kathleen has done. So with Hopeful Practices and Habits, you're going to notice that these are playlists that are ready to go. So if you have an account right now, you can actually, and you have this presentation open, you can click on this presentation. These are clickable links to take you to the dashboard so you can see them. So let me kind of do something really quick here because I want to show this off. And sorry, my chat isn't working, or I would throw the link in there. I don't know why it keeps not wanting to open up. Okay, there we go. Okay, so here's what Hopeful Practices and Habits, and I just want to show you, it has a teacher guide with it, gives you kind of a lot of information about what's inside of here, a progress report for your students, but the overview, it's designed for, who's it designed for? And this is beautiful. You've got a lesson, so you're really getting into this understanding of hope and this introduction to self-care, and then you do a project. So again, blooms, right? We're learning, we're growing, and then we're applying. We're going to learn, and apply. And so all of these are really getting kids to think about, what am I doing in my own life? What are some new strategies I can try? And then I start to use them. So beautiful playlists that have been created. Thank you, Kathleen, for doing that. Is there anything else you want to say about these playlists here?
Oh, that was awesome, Jeanette. And once again, educators, these are free. You can add these two playlists to your account and have your kids work on them inside your classroom as a way to support and nurture their hope inside your overall environment.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, depending on whether you're 3 through 5 or 6 through 12, feel free to access them. Okay, so moving on. So outside of the Thrively environment for goal setting, what can you do? Every day you have objectives that you put on your board. If you use what's known as the learning goal cycle, you will be supporting the hope score of your students. So you'll be supporting their psychological needs, which will ultimately impact their academic achievement with your content. So the way the learning goal cycle works is you learn, the students get feedback, and then they set goals. But I've noticed a lot of teachers try to do all the feedback themselves. That's not what we want. We want our students to be empowered and to take charge of their education. So this is what I've done. On the next slide, what you'll see is you will see some free tools that you can use to have students give feedback. This is a quick graphic organizer you can make a copy of, and it's make it, take it, so you can modify it if you need to, but it has ESL frames if you have ESL students like I do, so they can have sentence frames so they can give feedback. Even the younger kids, I've seen my son's teacher, so I have 7 children all together, and my son is in 2nd grade. They use a site called Flipgrid, which is recording videos to give each other feedback because writing takes a while for them. So they do a glow, that's one thing they're doing well, and a grow, one thing that they could do better in their work. And so the students learn how to do this. Then the next thing is in the learning goal cycle that you'll see on the next slide is From there, what the students do is they ultimately end up utilizing a feedback tracking form. Why? So the second graders, they look at their grids in Flipgrid and they go, oh, so this is something I'm doing really well. Oh, this is something I need to work on. And then from there, they set goals based off of the growths that they get from their fellow classmates. So this helps them focus in on problem areas that they're having. And most importantly, the glows help the student notice their personal strengths that they have with the subject. No longer can a student say, oh, I'm bad at English, or I'm bad at math, because guess what? They have living, breathing proof right in front of them that they are growing and they are achieving. They might not be good at everything, but everyone is good at something. All right, on the next slide, what you'll see is outside of the learning goal cycle, behaviors happen all the time in the classroom, and it's important that we get to the root of the behavior with goal setting. This is something that is newly released, just came out. And I created this to help get to the root of behaviors that you see in the classroom. And it works flawlessly. I was in middle school for 15 years. I'm going to tell you this works. So what you do is first you say a goal of what you want to address in the classroom. Like Billy is constantly out of his seat. Then you sit down with the student. And this is not when you're punishing the student. This is just to have a conversation. So make sure there's no punitive damages or anything that you're going to give the student at the moment. This is just to address it. So you listen to the student like, oh, I had to get out of my seat. I just really needed to sharpen my pencil. Maybe he's doing it all the time. Then you use similar words and you also mirror the body language of the student. Both of you sit down and the student will say, my concern is I can never sharpen my pencil. Your concern is that I'm always up out of my seats. So you're addressing both of your concerns. From there, you take both of those and you allow the student to problem solve, which is part of Pathways in Hope. And let them come up with different solutions to the problem. At least 3 of them, not 1, not 2, but 3. And make sure that the solution actually impacts the different concerns brought from the teacher, that's you, and the student. Then from there, you go and you identify what might be something that they're lacking. Because remember, every single behavior is a form of communication. And whether it's pencil sharpening or something else, it's still communicating something. So maybe that student doesn't have the language skills necessary to communicate their need. Well, that's something they need to set a goal on. We need to get to the underlying root of the problem, not just address the problem. That's the issue. If we don't address the problem, it'll happen again. Maybe the next time the kid just needs to have his eraser out, but he doesn't communicate, and that's the problem. So this is a list of underlying skills that go with behaviors that a student can goal set on and work on this with you. If you do hopeful problem solving, where you create solutions, and then the next step where you look at these skills that I have isolated with a SMART goal plan, which is all in this document, you will get to the stem of your behavior. And if you're an administrator or someone who has to work with students, this is a way to work on the underlying problem to help the student gain skills they need so the behavior doesn't show up again. Okay. So moving on to the next thing, because that one's super awesome and super powerful. Staff also need to be able to set goals. And one of the ways you can do that is with a staff skills directory. So a staff skills directory is where you just ask your staff, hey, what are you good at? A lot of administrators bring in people for outside professional development, and I think that's wrong. It really is, because you have experts in your building on various topics. And I'm going to say, as a teacher, I don't get utilized enough in a capacity like this, where I'm being valued for what I'm bringing to the table. This disbands the silos that are in education and has each staff member say what they are good at in different areas of teaching or secretarial work or whatever it is they do in the building. Then from there, after you have this list of what everyone's good at, you send it out to your staff. Why? Because it's important that I know, oh, I want to get Google certified. Guess what? Jessica across the hallway is already Google certified. It creates a culture of instructional coaching and caring in the building where I value the expertise of the person next to me. And then I can utilize them to coach me and guide me on an area that they're already an expert at. So once again, the copy of that is down at the bottom. The next thing Learning walks are super important for staff, just as much as the staff skills directory. Being able to go into the classroom and actually see your fellow teachers and what they're doing is very important, and it's vital. So what can we do? Very simple. This is a learning walk guide that shows you how to set up different learning walks and PD for your staff, where they get professional development for giving glows and grows to each other. If we want a culture where we're constantly growing and not just setting our goal for the year, it's important that we have a climate of collegiate understanding and expertise happening inside the school. Okay. The next thing, past overcoming, is our Thrively's Pathways playlist. So your students are going to be weak in certain areas. Those two areas where you're going to find the weaknesses are going to be pathways or agency, which is willpower. For the sake of time, these two playlists, these are intervention playlists. They do have a cost with them. Why? Because they are for interventions. If your student is low in hope, they need an intervention. We're going to give you free tools to intervene with your students, but these are intensified playlists that were created to meet the psychological deficits that a student might have if they are low in pathways thinking, which is their ability to form a path to their goals beyond just creating one solution to get there. So this is an important playlist that you can utilize and assign students if they happen to be low in pathways. All right, moving on. Next, we have what is super important to have in your classroom if you notice that a lot of your students are low in pathways, and that's utilizing flow charts or graphics of thinking patterns for your students. So a person who's high in pathways doesn't just have one plan, they have multiple plans on how to get there. So one of the things that you can do is create a flow chart of what to do when I'm stuck, because that's the biggest thing that happens in the classroom. So do I just sit here? A lot of teachers say, ask 3, then meet. You could put that on there. Whatever it is that you utilize in your classroom, you can throw in the stuck column to give your students a pathway of what to do when they're stuck. It also shows them they shouldn't have just one plan. A hopeful person has multiple plans of action for what to do if plan A, B, C, and D don't work. And you'll notice the stuck column, I made it so it's really generic, so it fits most subjects. And I've noticed elementary schools tend to add in pictures in there, and they take away some of the text to fit their students and their needs. Also with pathways thinking, as you'll see on the next slide, is, hold on, it's going, there we go, is the Pathway Milestones chart and the Building New Pathways tool. I use the Building New Pathways tool all the time with my students. I have them copied. Like, I want to say there's almost 600 copies just sitting on my desk. The students use this all the time because it helps them do divergent thinking. So school teaches a lot of convergent thinking. 1 + 1 is 2. That's the only solution. That's not how the world works. We need divergent thinkers. So this tool helps them develop that divergent thinking to support their overall pathways. Here's how it works. So first, the student says, here's my problem. I had a student and she was like, I can never remember the Pythagorean theorem. And then she had to list every strength about herself that she could think of. So she's like, I'm great at TikTok. I do great dances. I'm awesome at grammar. I know how to use a comma. So she lists all of these strengths that she can think of. 1, that takes her out of catastrophizing about the problem. 2, it distracts her brain enough so the problem can really get into your right hemisphere, so it really starts thinking creatively about the problem. And 3, after she's done listing her strengths on this sheet, she goes and she has to create a pathway. How can I use my strength for the problem? Because that's what high hope people do. They don't try to tackle the problem from an area of deficit. They look at their strengths and figure out how to use it for the problem. So that girl who was bad with the Pythagorean theorem, what did she do? At the end, she decided she would create her own TikTok dance, A² + B² = C². And when she did it, she also added in the steps she kept forgetting. She came to me the next day. She's like, oh my gosh, Ms. Beachford, look, I passed my test. Yes, you helped me do it. I said, no, you did it. And she's like, yeah, I did it. I provided the tool. She provided the pathway thinking that has raised her overall hope. And you can do the same thing just by providing the tool and showing kids once a model of how to use it. And it's the same thing with the Pathway Milestones. It teaches them backwards design thinking for bigger projects that you might assign. So if you're going to assign a big project, you could say, hey, let's take a few minutes and plan this backwards. What are you going to do every day up until the project? Because they need the time and the space to make plans for that and to plan for problems that might come up. Like my brother might have the Xbox in my room. So what could I do instead? Go work in my mom's room. That simple plan can help them have more willpower and energy and pathways to reach their goal. All right, moving on. So other pathway practices you can utilize, and I love this one in staff meetings as well as with students, is give every single person a Post-it note. And then as they come in the room, they write down a problem. Then you do what they do in speed dating. You put a kid or a staff member across from another teacher or another student. And if it's a staff meeting, you have the teachers give advice to each other on that problem and what they could do to solve it. So you could do this and this and this. Then after 30 seconds, the other person says their problem. They say, oh, I'm having a problem with blank. And the teacher offers a solution for that problem. What does that do? One, it teaches social trust with your fellow colleagues. Or if it's a classroom, it builds social trust for the students. Number two, the biggest thing that it does is it shows you problem areas either in your school culture, or in your classroom with the content you're teaching. So it's a win-win for everyone. And also make sure you do not plan for students. Give them the time and the space and show them how to plan to develop bigger pathway thinking. All right, moving on. I'm trying to go as fast as possible. So Thrively, like I said, it has a pathway playlist, but it also has an agency playlist for strengthening students' willpower and self-control. These, once again, are intervention playlists. There is a cost associated with them because I'm going to be very upfront with you because they are for an intervention. If a student is very low in willpower or agency, it is important that they have some sort of intervention, either through the tools that we're going to give you today or by accessing this playlist for your students, because it will quickly boost their hope within 90 minutes of an intervention. That's what research shows. Okay, so other than the Thrively playlist, we also have tools to strengthen willpower. Willpower doesn't work the way we think it does. It's more like the emergency brake of your car. You don't use that to drive, so you sort of want to avoid using willpower as your first resort. You want to use it as a last resort. So what can we do instead? First, we can strengthen the intrinsic motivation built into our lessons. How? With the next tool that you'll see on the screen. So the next tool that you'll see is built-in lesson engagement. That's impossible. No, it's not. It uses self-determination theory. So using autonomy, relatedness, and competence, we can increase student intrinsic motivation during our lessons. You can get 80% engagement if you get one thing out of each one of those boxes. What do you mean? You list all the activities that you're doing in class. Then after you have the activities listed, you say, how much autonomy do I have? Voice and choice. If you have it, give yourself a check in the autonomy box. How much relatedness? What happens in this lesson? What opportunity exists for the student to feel connected or needed? I have to build that into my lesson? Yes. So for example, if you were doing a math lesson on fractions, one of the things you could do is have the students bring in recipes from home that mean something to them. Why? Because that deals with relatedness. You need my recipe for the lesson. I'm needed. And it's simple things like that. And then lastly, competence. What opportunities exist for the student to master what they're doing, to do it over and over again? And that's why that learning goal cycle that we showed you earlier is super important, because it gives them an opportunity and a space to master areas where they might be struggling. Okay, moving on. On top of using that, you can also boost motivation for staff by using a simple tool like this, which is a certificate of appreciation. Teachers did not get into, and staff members get into education for the fame and the money. If you did, well, this is not the profession for you. Why did they get into it? To have an impact, to make a difference. And a lot of the times, students, they will come back and say something 30 years in the future, or they'll see you at Starbucks and say, oh my gosh, you made a difference. parents. Teachers need that more often now because they're dealing with more secondary trauma from the pandemic. So one of the ways we can do that is anytime there's an award ceremony, provide students with the ability to say, this person made a difference for me. Then once they've filled it out, give it to the staff members. That one little thing will change the climate of your school over the course of time because it's impactful. That's why teachers do what they do. And so it will keep them going in the moments where they struggle. Okay. So moving on. And another thing that you can do is 3 grateful emails. I recommend ending every day with 3 grateful emails. At the beginning of the day in your email box, pull up 3 emails. In the subject, write grateful. By the end of the day, I want you to fill it out for someone who impacted your day, who you're grateful for. Yes, you might have a bad day, but if you end it purposely and proactively on a grateful note, it will change the course of your day and remind you that yes, bad things may happen, but it's not all bad. And that's one of the things that you can do for your own personal hope and mental health. Another thing is use the competence tool. I haven't been doing this very successfully because it's a webinar, but as you're speaking with your students, what you want to do is use the 1 to 2 rule. For every 1 minute where you are giving direct instruction, they should be given 2 minutes to show their competence of the subject because it'll boost their intrinsic engagement. As well as get rid of all the posters on your wall. No poster ever made a difference for a child, I'm sorry, unless it's a poster that they made. So fill your room and your school with different examples of student success. It's important, and we don't do it enough. Highlight student quotes. Have a success board where you just show different things that every kid has done. I have a vision board. As soon as you walk in my classroom, you can see the different goals every single student has set for their life. They see their dreams before they walk in the door. What a powerful motivation for each one of my high schoolers that I care about their dreams before they even enter the classroom. Another thing that you can do outside of the competence tool is to utilize relatedness. If you want to have more parent engagement, you can use this tool right away. And it's amazing because you don't even have to do hardly anything. So what I do is I have this tool inside my digital classroom for my students. What they do is, and this is high schoolers, they type up an email to their parent saying, I'm super proud of myself, because remember, people low in hope, they think they just get lucky. They don't take ownership of their success. So my high schoolers write, oh my gosh, today I totally figured out what a simile is and how it's different from a metaphor. Then they CC me on the email and they send it to their parents. What? So I have normally, like today, I had 37 emails sent from students to their parents celebrating their success. And you could have this in paper form where students fill it out. If it's little kids, you could have them record a video and send it to their parents. It's important that they have time and space to celebrate their personal accomplishments. And it increases parent engagement with the classroom and student success. Okay. And then there's also jigsawing and rich group work. The last thing that I really want to highlight is the pre-commitment contract. So before we use willpower, it's important to think of the things that we can do before using willpower. Angela Duckworth did a lot of research on self-control, and she found out that hope actually fuels grit and determination. So when you look at this, if you increase their hope by having them plan ahead for things that might happen. So cell phones, they're a big problem in school. In my classroom, I have hardly any single child ever have their cell phone out. Why? Because they sign a contract, a pre-commitment contract, to do one of two things. One, to put the cell phone at the beginning of the classroom up front where they can't even touch it, or two, to use an app called Forest. And the app is amazing because what it does is it grows a little tree and it prevents them from getting any notifications. So they feel good because they accomplish the growth of the tree, and then they can show it to me. And it also teaches them to manage their cell phone addiction. So the students, I have no problems with them utilizing their cell phone because they've learning to actually control the cell phone. And that changes their appraisal of their cell phone because then they start to see it as a tool rather than as a pacifier for any amygdala response that they have. Okay, so moving on with agency. We're almost there. We also have a Maintaining Hope daily playlist. And this is awesome because it's a daily dose of hope for you to show like 5 to 10 minutes of focused practices that you can utilize whole class to help strengthen the hope of your overall students. And it's great and it's really quick. And there are tons of them that I created. And then last but not least, we're almost to the very end. Through increasing hope in our school cultures, monitoring student hope scores, and utilizing hopeful practices, we can change education. We can improve educational attainment for our students, life satisfaction for our students and staff, and most of all, improve the well-being of our students and improve our school cultures. So if you want a visual summary of the concepts, if you click on that link, it has links to all of the different things that we talked about today. And on top of that, it's a visual organizer of what you can do to improve the hope of students and staff. So yeah, go ahead, Jeanette, click on the link so they can see what it looks like. And here's a quick visual. So this is what hope is. These are some of the questions answered today. And then on the next slide, what you'll see is this is how you can improve psychological hope for the student. The links are clickable. It shows you that this deals with goals, pathways, or agency, especially if you take their hope score. These are the things you can do, and it has the tools built in Thrively to support it. On top of, here's what you can do for your staff members. Some of them we were able to talk about today. Some of them we weren't. I tried to make a whole book into 30 minutes. It was really stressful. But like I said, all of these tools, they are make it, take it for you. They are impactful. And without further ado, I'll let Jeanette close us off, and then I'll stay on to take any questions you have, because I'm here not because of anything else other than to be here to support my fellow educators, because I love you and I respect all of you, because I'm in there teaching every day.
Well, as I promised in the beginning, did you guys get enough resources? I don't know. I mean, I want to go back in the classroom because I want to use all these. But so we've got a couple questions here, and some really thankful people for sharing this stuff. Sounds like some of you have had a rough day, and you're right. Just being around each other, being around the ability to hear hopeful practices raises our hope. We want to double check, Kathleen, did you call that the Forest app?
Yes, it's Forest, but there's other ones. So if you look up any sort of pre-commitment app, and it's also listed on that visual, because I love pre-commitment apps. And yes, I do use Forest for whoever asked that. I'll show you my Forest. It's crazy big, because that's how I'm able to have 7 children, write 2 books and do all this stuff, because it's impactful. It teaches you to manage your time and to focus, because the whole thing with multitasking, it doesn't work according to research. So here's my Forest app. Look at that. And I have grown an entire forest, but I'll let Jeanette tell you about the Thrively Hope package before I show you my amazing forest. I'm so proud of you.
So many of these resources, again, are amazing. Oh, wow. Yeah, you did grow a forest.
Yeah.
See, she's growing a forest, writing books. I mean, I can't keep up. But what's so great about it too is she's given us so many resources. Thrively, we have a Hope certification course for educators. If you want to learn more and go through this process, we also, of course, all the playlists we've shared with you, whether it's intervention or it's daily dose, the book right here. And we are right now, normally this whole package would come to you at a pretty, nice price tag here. But, and we need to change this because we're extending it out because we had to split up. She had so many resources. We had to split the webinar into 2, which I'm so thankful for because we get to digest it as we go, but we're extending this until November. So if you would like to get the webinar discount, fill out this interest form. I'm going to grab this and put it in the chat as well. Let me stop sharing for a moment, but fill this out, share your, people that we can talk to in your school district or colleagues that you have. We are open, and Kathleen is so gracious to be open to talking to people about this. I know a couple of you said you'd maybe like to be adopted and or have you come live with them. So I don't know if you can do that, go live in their schools and help bring their hope up, but yes.
If you guys have any other questions, and yeah, Zaina, two books. Yeah. And I'm working on finalizing all these new resources and like a mini book for teachers coming out too. And it's all hope stuff for everybody. And I hope it's been wonderful. If you want more tools, once again, feel free. You can email me at kathleenbeachboard@gmail.com. You can check out my book, which is The School of Hope. It has more resources in it. And I have new ones coming out all the time. The behavior one, you guys got that before anybody else. And I'm going to tell you that behavior hope practice, where you get to the underlying skills, it's important because a lot of schools, they do discipline, they never get to the root of the problem. And I have seen with my own eyes, schools utilizing it right now. I'm working with 7 different schools. They have seen behavior decrease by at least 30%. So yeah, there's all my info. I love all of you. Zaina, you're amazing. And I'm so glad she came to the webinar. And if you guys need anything, reach out, because Thrively's here for you. And we want you to have all these tools because Thrively is on a mission to help every kid thrive. And it's important that they do. And it starts with hope.
Yeah, so I put it in the chat, but thrively.com/join. You can join for free. You can add your students tomorrow. You can take the strength assessment, the hope survey. You can get wonderful information and start really making an impact. Raise your own hope too. Share this with your staff. It's so powerful. And Kathleen, again, thank you for the work you do. Thank you for being out there into the world and making a difference. And thank you to all of you. I know you do need a whole year, Paul, to digest it.
Also, if you want to, you can watch my TED Talk, so I can throw the link in the chat.
Yeah.
If you want to just be like, hey, because it's more on personal hope and how to strengthen your own personal hope. So I'll throw the link in the chat so you guys can watch it if you want on your own time.
Yeah.
And I'm here for all of you as you take this hope journey.
Thank you so much. Share this with your friends, share this with your colleagues, and we appreciate all of you. Have a great Tuesday and happy All Saints Day, right?
Woohoo!
Thank you, Kathleen. And you all have
Bye,
a
guys.
great afternoon and evening, wherever you're at. Let me make sure there's one more question. Yes, you can rewatch the video. So all of these webinars, and in fact, her last webinar, part 1, is at thrively.com/webinars. So please check that out. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a fabulous day.
Bye. You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye-bye.